Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. That's right, it's that time again. It's midweek, and I want you to play some Magic so that you can win 2 free rare or better ICRs and some cosmetics if you're into that. Because, why would you not want free cards? That's why you come here every week, right? Anyway. This week's midweek Magic event is super budget friendly. It is one of our historic all access events. So all year we struggle with historic because we just don't have that many cards available in our historic collection, and we're basically taking knives to gunfights because we're playing standard decks or mostly standard decks against historic. But not this week, by God, because they gave you access to every card you'd want in Historic and just let you play with it like you actually owned it. Pretty darn cool, don't you think? But before we get into all that, my crack research team has recently pointed out that we are the only channel doing consistent and timely midweek Magic content. And by crack team, of course, I mean one comment from someone who had nothing at all to do with this monkey image. So be sure to subscribe right here at the Planeswalker Stronghold for all of your future midweek Magic needs, because we will be bringing you a deck list or strategy every single week. Now, what were we talking about this week? Oh, yeah, right. So whenever one of these all access events comes up, the very first question that I ask myself is, why would we not play the best deck in the format if we don't have to actually own the cards? And for a moment, I thought I had found a reason why we wouldn't play the best deck in the format, or at least I wouldn't talk about the best deck in the format. You see, when I pulled the data for Historic, I saw that Mono-Green Elves is still at the top of the list. And short of something like an Alchemy rebrand, whatever they're calling it these days, that is probably not going to change anytime soon. And I said, wow, yeah, I just did a video on Mono-Green Elves and Historic, and I don't want to talk about the same thing again. But then I realized two distinct things that changed my mind. One, when I say I just talked about Mono-Green Elves and Historic, it turns out that was back in June. And there's probably a lot of you at this channel right now that were not around for that video, or for whatever reason didn't pay attention to it at the time. Secondly, the running best deck list for Mono-Green Elves and Historic has changed significantly since that time, and ironically has become even more budget friendly. So if you are thinking about maybe building this deck in Historic, this is a good list for you to take a look at. All right, so let's take a minute and dig into this deck here. And I'm going to change the viewpoint here just to make it a little bit easier. Land base could not be simpler. We're just running 19 snow-covered forests. The snow is really only slightly important because of the sentinels. Well, no, it's not even the sentinel. What are we doing here that we want snow? Or did they just run snow by default? I really think that's what they're doing here. They're just running snow by default. So if you don't want to run snow, no, not a big deal. Castle Garenbrig, we are running 3 copies of that, mostly as a ramp source. And it is always going to come into play untapped unless it is your very first land, in which case, why would you do that? The main thing that makes this deck work is the Allosaurus Shepherd. It is a 1-drop that you may not want to play on your first turn because you want to be able to protect this. but maybe dropping it on turn 5 and then being able to tap 6 mana the following turn, turn all of your elves into 5/5 dinosaurs in addition to their other types, which is just dumb to take a bunch of 1/1 elves and turn them into 5/5s. The other thing that makes this deck go is Craterhoof Behemoth. That's right, this deck runs essentially on 4 mythics, which, believe it or not, is down from 8 mythics. They were running 4 of each of these cards in the previous version. Craterhoof Behemoth, a 5 and 3 green pips for a 5/5 haste. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So this is just a classic overrun deck. Everything else that we talk about here basically just puts elf and ramp into play so that you can get a bunch of bodies out onto the board and pump them up a little bit. One change to the current deck list over, say, last June is the inclusion of Prosperous Innkeeper. This guy is so good and so much value, he doesn't need to be an elf to be in the elf deck. A 1/1 that gains you life off of all your other elves coming into play is just fantastic. And he brings along a treasure for ramping, so pretty darn nice. The Lookout gives you a reach creature, so you can deal with early flyers, particularly if you have things like the War Master or things like that to pump up your elf army, or it just creates a chump blocker if you're looking at a really early aerial threat. The Clan Caller, of course, pumps up all of your elves and tutors up additional copies of itself for the, I don't know, bargain price of 6 mana. As you can see, I don't actually own these cards. I'm sure you can figure out why. One card I do own, and I'm glad I never got more than one copy because that is how many now they're running in the list, is Imperious Perfect. Marwyn is very, very nice. The Realm Walkers, another card from the current standard environment that you may very easily have in your collection and give you a jump start on this. The Elvish Archdruid is another Lord effect, plus allows you to tap for a crap ton of mana. Frelaze, am I saying that right? Probably not. It's +1 ability, untap up to 1 target elf. That elf and a random elf creature card in your hand perpetually get +1/+0. -1, seek an elf, and for -6, conjure a card named Regal Force onto the battlefield. So really the thing to do here is either pump up the elves in your hand or create a blocker potential situation. In this particular deck, I almost never summon a Regal Force because frankly you don't need to. Collected Company, we have talked about this card in the past. It's stupid broken, and if you draw it, you should probably play it. That's how stupid cards work. Elven Ambush, this is a card I had never seen in this Elves deck before. I'm not sure it's a great choice for 4 mana, creating a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. I don't know, this feels win more, but I guess it's not entirely crazy. Maybe. We'll see how it does in the actual playthrough on this. But that is the basic idea of the deck, is get really wide with elves, then get tall and overrun them. What's that? You didn't catch all that? Well, Matt would like you to know that any deck list applicable to this video can be found down in the doobly-doo. And hey, let's not forget, the whole reason to participate in these totally free midweek Magic events is the prize support is awesome. You get a rare for your first and second win, and then you get a random cosmetic for your third. How awesome is that? All right, so with all that having been said, don't forget, smash the like button like Hulk would. And of course, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And one last thing, myself, I'm coming to you from America, and I have noticed that about 1/3 of my viewership is coming from the US, and about 1/3 is coming from various countries. And there's about 1/3 of my viewership that is just getting lumped into other. So to let me know you got to the end of the video, throw me a comment down in there and let me know where you are watching from.